Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to get into another accessories video. In this case, it's watches. And though I've spoken about watches before on the channel in the past, this is a long while ago. I think it's been about maybe even 2 years ago, but or ballpark somewhere in that range. But recently, a friend of mine was asking about some advice on getting a watch. Well, he mentioned to me about wanting to get a watch, and then I told him that I had a bit of knowledge in that field. And so that caused me to kind of get a little bit excited about trying to help him find a watch. And I'm going to dive deeper into that later on, probably in a second video. But what this made me do is want to first kind of show, just talk about just in general, like accessorizing to have a watch, and also kind of showing off my collection just as a place of showing you like the highs and the lows and where I went with things and where my thought process was when it came to purchasing a watch. And obviously, if I could do things over again, I would probably do things differently. But one thing they always say is that the watch community is that a lot of people end up going on that journey where they end up wasting a bit of money trying to find what they really like in their taste. And I think that applies to a lot of things, hobbies or interests or anything in life. Sometimes you have to go through that hard journey of figuring out what you like by seeing all the things that you don't like and making mistakes. So we're going to kind of jump into this. I also want to mention, there's some watches that I don't have on hand. So I will talk on some of them, but some of them that I don't have in front of me at the moment. I think there's like maybe about 3 that I have that are away. One is an old watch that was my dad's, and that's gonna be that played a significant role in terms of my watch taste. And I'll jump into that one in a little bit. And then there was 2 other ones that one was a Seiko watch that is, both of them are Seiko watches, but one is a Seiko watch that is kind of inspired by my favorite watch. But at the same time, it was like a lot more of affordable option. So anyway, just kind of jump into things. This is going to be a very relaxed video, so don't mind. It's going to be very long. It's going to be a lot of rambling. No real sense of direction going on here. I'm just going to kind of free flow with it, and hopefully you guys enjoy the video. So, and there's a couple of points too that I want to mention over, but I might end up saving for another video because I know it's going to be a lot. So first, I will say that with the cases that you see in front of you, I used this one for storage at one point because I started having a bit of watches, and then this one became the main ones that I would kind of rotate through. And there was definitely a difference between when I was doing work throughout the couple of years of me getting into watches. I started really getting into collecting watches. I've always had, always had a watch, or, there was even a segment where I got into having a small collection of like about 3 watches, but I wouldn't even consider myself a watch person at that time. And it was mostly just having, just a few options, I would say, especially to have something for work. And it wasn't until 2015 when I really started getting into the direction of really getting into like that space of trying to collect watches. I was actually just trying to get myself a newer watch, my first luxury watch. And from then just opened up the rabbit hole. So what I'm going to end up doing is I am going to angle the camera downwards, and I'm just going to pull from these boxes here, but it's easier for me to show you guys these watches from this angle. So first I want to just kind of jump in. I'm going to try to not be in any kind of particular order. I have this here because I didn't want to put it into the box right now. I normally don't have the one in the box. I had it just sitting on my windowsill actually, just so it's always juiced up, but I really don't wear this watch. I bought this one later on in the collection. Like I said, I'm not going to go through specifically a order of things. I'm just going to kind of go with the story and just ramble a little bit. Don't mind, it's a little bit wet. I rinsed it off because I had a little bit of dust on it. This is one of those watches I'm just going to talk about because I have it in front of me. This is one of those watches, a Citizen. It's a chronograph. I like it, but the truth is being caught up in that whirlwind of, and this is an aftermarket strap I put on it because I wanted this kind of look, that stitching look, red to match with the red highlights on the dial, as well as the fact that I just kind of like that look for a chronograph. And the strap, the bracelet that came with it, it's okay, but it's nothing great. But I will say that this is one of those watches that was an impulse buy. I saw it on sale, actually at Macy's. And for me, it was one of those watches where I was just kind of like in that space of like trying to collect the gamut. And I think that's important for people to kind of realize, not to get lost into that, but it always happens for most people in their journey. Hold on, I'm just gonna grab me a microfiber. All right, and this is one of those, like I said, it was one of those impulse buys where you just buy because you get to a place sometime where you get into the collecting where you're just like, you almost want to fill a checklist, almost like, okay, I got this piece, I got a diver, I need one of these, and I will honestly say, if you could avoid that, I know it's hard because sometimes, like I said, we got to go that journey sometime before we hit that space where we're like, yeah, you learn yourself, you learn what you're into and whatnot. But I would say that if you can avoid that, sorry, I just want to turn my lights up a little bit, try to, because that is a rabbit hole that is not beneficial. Luckily, I didn't spend too much money on a lot of impulse buys. I mean, I did, relative to the fact that they aren't needed, and relative to the fact that, even this, I think, was like maybe, I want to say it was something like maybe $90 or less. So it was something that was expensive, but relative to how some people get really expensive watches and regret it later, in that case, it's not too bad, because honestly, I could just gift it away. And I've done that before with watches, and I don't have a problem doing that. So that's one thing when it comes to that. I'm going to show this watch over here really quick. Also part of my collection, that's like, this one was actually a piece that actually was significant in terms of what I got out of it. Now, this one is a Seiko 5. It's damaged, so that's why I have it in here, because I don't want anything getting to it because it's cracked open. I got to get it fixed, but now it's like I don't have as much of a purpose to wear it. It's a field watch style. I really like the idea of that. I was working and it benefited me because I needed military time. At least it was beneficial to have a watch that could tell me military time. And it had all these other features like the day and the date on it. And it's just great for an everyday watch, great for a watch to beat up. This one at the time costed me about like $120. And the bracelet that came on it, I wasn't a fan of, but I ended up I took the bands off of it, but essentially it was this same aftermarket brand. Let me zoom out. Same aftermarket brand like this one, which I got on Amazon. To be honest with you, if people request for the link of this, I'll try to find it. But otherwise, I bought it so long ago, I don't even know if they still have them on there. They probably do. I like that it kind of was a little bit bulky and didn't look cheap, but it wasn't an expensive one. The braiding does come off though, sometimes, depending on if you beat it up a little bit, but keep in mind, or just know that braiding, that stitching is not actually affected. It's not holding it together in any way. It's just really decoration. So I had a black one of that with the blacks, like all black, the black stitching as well, to give this thing just that kind of like, feel with the rubber strap, silicone strap, that, it could get sweaty on it. You could beat it up. Nothing's going to happen to it. It's not a big deal. Really a big fan of this watch. Now, it didn't have hacking and hand winding because it used Seiko's older movement, the 7, I forget it now, the 7S26. It's the 7S36. But this was one of their more affordable movements that they used to throw in everything. Now, it's not really used anymore unless you find one of these older models. And this model has been changed now. It's more expensive. They updated it now to have hacking and hand winding now, which I think is a better value. But it starts bringing it into the territory where it starts competing with Hamilton's field watches, and those are really good. So, it's something to consider. I am a big fan of Seiko. It's actually my favorite brand, but being that I got this for such a good deal, I just thought it was amazing. And because I wore it almost every single day, when I would go to work, it became a watch where I didn't have to worry about the movement, because even though it doesn't hack and hand wind, it was always charged because I used it. So that was in itself really good. I'm gonna go jump into just talking about all the watches that all the watches that are inside the box over here, because these are the ones I really don't wear really. One of them I actually do. I just put it in here just for the fact of, I haven't worn it in a while though, but, and I'll touch on that one a little bit last. I'm gonna bring out these two right here. And these two right here are two Bulovas. Have had them sitting on here for a while. That's one thing too. Sometimes when you have these things sitting on in the box on these pillows for a long time, I'm sure it probably shapes the what do you call it, the band a bit. So also what I did a long time ago was I wrote down on a small piece of paper the name of the model while I still knew it. So later on, if I was to forget it, I would at least be able to say like, hey, like I have it written down. So these two watches, along with a third watch, and I will pull that out. I actually have it in this box here because sentimental reasons. I don't really wear it much anymore, but so matter of fact, that reminds me, I want to find another watch that I had, and I'll find that later on in this other video. It was a Fossil watch, that kind of what I used to wear since high school. I bought that at the time. If you just had a metal bracelet watch, it was considered to be, you know, flashy back then. And so, and I don't know where, or if I have the name of this Citizen. So I know I got it somewhere. Don't have it on hand right now. That one, I know I got it somewhere. But so I had a family member had gifted me this when I was wearing that Fossil all the time. And it was a way of upgrading. It was like, oh, you know, you have a Fossil. It's time for you to upgrade to another watch. Now, they weren't heavy into the watch scene, neither was I. But generally, just when you think of a just regular, when you think of just like a person having a regular nice watch, nothing, you know, break at the bank, but just a regular nice watch. Citizen to me is a great company that falls into that category. You could wear it and it looks nice. It's going to compliment you and it's going to get the job done. So the family member upgraded me to this. I didn't know about integrated bracelets at the time. Simply means that you can't remove this bracelet to switch it out to something else. But I really enjoyed this at the time. It was so much more premium than my Fossil watch was. A lot of aspects about it. Mirror finish on the back, I always thought that was really cool. Even with little hairline scratches, it still holds that extreme polish. And butterfly clasp, really nice. Eco drive, and it's pretty simple, but it's very dressy. And it's cool. It's a really nice watch. So this opened up, not the floodgates. This just became the regular watch I was wearing. But then what happened is I was wearing this. I started wearing it to work, and I was working in an environment where it would get beat up. So I didn't want to risk that. So what happened was, sorry, I'm taking this other watch off right now that I have on me, and I'm going to talk about that one later. So what happened is, I then had got this watch. Now, these are not the original strap on it. This is not the original strap because, let me see something here. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's actually similar to the same type of strap, whatever. The only difference was that this one is supposed to have quick release, and the quick release things got lost, but I have to do it manually. But anyway, so I actually really love this watch. Very dressy. The battery on it is dead right now. Very thin, very dressy. I love that profile of it. It's really nice. You can see the little texture brushing on the side, the way it's done. It's really thin, really nice as a dress watch. I think people say it Bulova. I call it Bulova. Sorry if that's not the way you pronounce it, but I just want to give you that heads up in advance. So, or if I go back and forth between the two, it's just because I heard it so many different ways. So anyway, what happened was I started wearing this the first time I had to find out. It had a really nice leather strap. And what I'll say about, Bulova is that the straps that they have, I don't know about the bracelets because I haven't really had watches of theirs with a bracelet. I had one and I gifted it away. But as far as their straps, whether it's the leather one or the silicone rubber ones, they're really good for their price. They're really good. And I had a leather one that was on this and it was so nice of a strap that literally what happens, I started wearing this one on hot days at work. My wrist was sweating and I was wearing it because I tried to have it as an alternative to this, me not knowing much about watches at the time. Wearing a leather band is not what you want to be wearing while you are sweating in hot summer days. So what happened is I destroyed that strap and eventually, obviously, I had to take it off of it. I kept that strap though, because I just wanted to know that this was the quality of it, and I have it put away, and I wanted to go get another strap, but I never got around to it, ordering it from Bulova, because their straps are just really, really good. So then later on, I got this one to be my one that I would use at work, or to beat up. And obviously with this type of rubber strap, I didn't have to worry about it, but it's very thick. It's very nice quality. It's so good. The rubber on it is that I feel like that in itself is almost worth the watch. And the watch got on sale as well on Macy's, where I only paid maybe like something under $100 or about like $95. It's not perfect or by any means, but it looks nice. And as a watch that I was able to kind of wear and just kind of, at any given moment, just throw it on, it was really nice. And I really like this watch. It serves its purpose really nice. You can see it's got the black, a little bit dirtier back there, but PVC coating black all over. And really was a fan of this watch, but I'm really a fan of these straps. So like Bulova is one of those brands that I honestly would say they're really, I love their straps. It's so worth it. So if someone wants to go that route, they can. I like their designs that are like this. I would say they're comparable to Citizen as well, but I feel like, to me, Citizen is a little more bright, I guess you could say, a little more in your face a little bit, not in a negative way, but just, so this is this Bulova's model here. They changed it a little bit, actually, a newer version of it that now doesn't have that that symbol on it. They took that symbol off because I guess they were trying to rebrand, where they put that only on certain types of watches. So this one now, the new reissue of this, doesn't look like this, so you can't get it like that anymore. And this one is this, just so those who might want to know, 98B159. So yeah. And so just to kind of really recap with this watch here, like I said, this became my staple. So it was that 3-watch collection, but this became my staple as far as the one I wear when I want to go out on a night on town, dress up, this and that. And it's great, and it served that purpose. And I was honestly content with this watch being my main watch for a very long time. Where things shifted was when a family member was going to pretty much said I can go pick out a watch for my birthday. And so I ended up purchasing this watch, but this isn't that same watch, because later on I ended up getting it. I ended up getting it again later, but I actually returned it, and I'm gonna go into that story and just in a second. Let me just put this one away here. But essentially, so what happened is, at that time, this is where I first kind of went into that foray of trying to learn watches. I'm gonna take out my little thing. I gotta use tweezers for this because these little pieces of paper are so small. The name of the model. So this is obviously a Movado. It is their museum watch, and one of their like higher end museum watches, because it is It is with the gold highlights, two-tone. And I love the idea of, at that time, if you were not heavy into watches, Movado was considered like I would say more affordable premium brand, or like the normal man's premium brand. To use that context, I don't want to use a term that makes it seem, shallow or knocking it, because I don't think any watch brand is bad. It's just whatever floats your boat. But as far as, let's see, this thing is always hard to open. It's got like tension, which is kind of cool that you don't use a button on it, but at the same time, it makes it hard to open. This watch feels very light too. It is obviously just a quartz. I really like this watch a lot, in terms of like the way it looks, that classic look and the vibe. I don't really wear it though, because when I originally got this watch, I was happy for it. I actually paid a lot of money too. I bought it in a, I forget the name of the store. I think it was a Zales. Like I said, I didn't really know anything about watches. And so I bought this because in my mind, okay, this is like considered like the premium regular man's watch. And I was happy with it at first, but I'm one of those people who, once I get something, whatever it is that I get into a hobby with, the first thing I do after the fact, let me just bring that to the camera so you guys can see it, that model. First thing I always end up doing is that now I start doing research on that topic. And once I did and started learning about all these other watches, I was like, wow, okay, one, not only did I spend a lot of money for this because I'm spending retail when there's third-party places to get it cheaper. I paid like $1,250 for it at the time. And this is around 2015. But then also, I was like, there are other watches that now, once I started kind of opening my mind to, I was like, other watches that I can get. There's mechanical watches like automatics. I started learning all this kind of stuff, and it just kind of like blew me away. So I ended up returning it. But then later on, obviously you can see here, I ended up buying it again, but off a third-party market where I was able to get it a lot cheaper now. Something I think in the range of like $600 or something like that. So so half the price of that. I don't regret it, but it's not a watch that I really wear anymore. It's not really fitting my style anymore. I could see it looking nice to dress up. I could see it really catering to those who, if you're around a crowd who doesn't know a lot about watches, this is definitely going to look very appealing if they see it. And it's really like, there's a lot of stuff. I like the bracelet. It has a Jubilee-ish style bracelet. I really like it, but it's hard to describe. It's almost like once you've become aware of how your taste has changed, I'll say it like that, this watch becomes a little more like, this may not affect everybody, but for me, it became like a little less appealing. And it's crazy. It has a really nice bracelet on too, because you see it doesn't have hollow end legs. They're solid. It just feels very light. It feels like a very dressy watch, but it's like, I just don't see it. Now, it's not my cup of tea anymore, but it was at one point in time. Not that I wore it much, because I really just had it for a short while, but my taste in general brought me to it because I like the simplicity, that dressy vibe. I like dressy watches. Now, before I ended up getting that one again to satisfy that taste or that desire to have that, and I don't see the little thing written, the model on it. Maybe it got lost somewhere underneath there, but I had purchased this one here. Is the non-bracelet version, and it's pretty much the same thing. Nice for a little dressy thing. So if a person wants to just throw this on just to be a little dressy, it's not bad. What's funny is their bands, their leather bands, are not better than Bulova, which was a fraction of the price. It just throws me off so much of how great Bulova's bands are. They're leather bands of a watch that I've just bought standard. Not that I buy a lot of watches that come with leather bands. So amazing that it puts like so many other ones to shame. You literally could buy a Bulova watch just for the band. You'd have to change the metal hardware on it though. But yeah, I would honestly say that it's worth it if a person did that. Also around that time, I had purchased I'm gonna bring both of these out. These are two Seikos, and let me grab their little tags so we know the name of the models. I happen to still have them here. They're not lost. So showing this one first, similar to how I mentioned before about the whole chrono, having a chronograph and getting into that space of wanting something that just filled that itch or that niche, or just having, you know, just something in the collection. And I was a big fan of Seiko at the time. I saw this for a really affordable price. I'm sure it's not even working anymore now because the battery's been dead. I don't really wear it. I like how that yellow has the yellow on the stitching and then on the front of the watch. On the dial, I love it how it has that stepper. It feels like a little stadium in that regard. So I think it's really cool. It's not an automatic, it's a quartz. This thing wasn't that much money. I think there was like maybe, this thing was like maybe less than $100, like 70 something dollars, I think at the time. So I like it, but the truth is I'm not really a big fan of chronographs. It was just me trying to fill that itch. And I bought this one before I bought that Citizen, trying to fill that itch. I think it looks really nice. It's slim. It's a nice watch. If someone just wanted to have a nice watch to just put on, I think it looks really nice. And I think that this could be somebody's only watch if they weren't like heavy into watches at the moment. They just wanted something nice to wear. And you were at, like, say that same stage I was when I first had that 3-watch collection. And I got the, you know, at that point when I got the Dressy Belova and whatnot. If someone at that stage in their collecting bought something like this, I think they'd be fine with just this alone. The leather on Seiko straps don't feel very nice. They feel very hard. They're definitely not Belova quality. But they could probably break in over time. Or you could always switch it out and then put the different hardware. But this one right here, because it has the color of the stripes, I wouldn't do something like that. And this one here is, now I can't even pick it up, SNDC 89P2, just so you know the reference number on that one. And this one right here, I'll get this one out of the way first, is the Seiko SUN041. Now, this one right here became the itch of having a GMT watch that was also a little dressy. Once again, I was on my Seiko binge at the time, and you know, this is coming after the time of my 2015 descent into getting watches. So like I said, I'm not going in particular order. The same with that other Seiko was in the same vein. And yeah, it's way too thick. It uses kinetic as its means of charging, which is almost like a hybrid of, like, it's got a rotor there when you move it around, but then that charges the electric power on it, whatever that's called, battery or whatever the case is. I don't know the mechanics deep inside of what it's charging, but it ends up charging it electronically through that. It's almost like a mechanical automatic watch, but it's not. And this watch to me was cool. I didn't pay that much for it either. I think I paid like less than $100, and it was cool. It has a vibe. I think I got it for a birthday. Once again, their straps do not feel good. They look good, but they don't feel good. They're very stiff. The watch is cool. The indices, all that. I just don't like that it's so thick. But if it wasn't for that, I'll be honest with you, this would be a great only watch for a person, because I really like the dial. Actually looks nice too. Let me zoom back in that. I'm sorry. You can see how that dial looks. It's got the striping, just a lot going on, and it just feels like it punches way above its price for what it is. So in that regards, I think that it's cool, but it's just so thick, and this is noisy too. I don't know if you could hear that, but so it was a cool watch, but like I said, I'm just kind of going over the journey of where I went with my watches. Also, another one where most of these watches that I'm pointing out to you are watches where if I can go back now, was part of the journey, but if I can go back now, I would probably not have bought a lot of them, because to be honest, they don't fit for me. Now, the three that I told you, the two Belovas and the Citizen, that's different. That was before I started the watch journey. Those really served a great purpose for me because for a few years, I would say from around 2011 to 2015, before I got into the Movado, which I ended up returning and later on going down this journey. Those three were my staple. So I don't regret those at all because they were a staple for me. Yes, and kind of like held me down, which I think there's nothing wrong with. If someone say wanted a mini collection, but nothing major, you could have a couple of affordable watches that are, maybe, and I say affordable loosely, but $100, between each watch being $100 and maybe $200, and that just being your little staple of your like three watches, maybe one that's for dressy, one that's for like casual, and one that's for like, rugged. And I think that is nothing wrong with that. And I think that's a healthier place to be at before getting stuck into that watch journey where you just kind of like go down the rabbit hole. If you could be in that space, I think that's great and healthy. The other watch that I would say that I don't regret also so far that we've just taken a look at was the Seiko that is damaged on the glass, the field watch, which that one took a lot of beatings and it didn't crack when it took the beatings. One day I just woke up and it just shattered. And I think that's because whatever hits and drops it took previously, it just hit its limit. And I think that just happened because just one day it just shattered on its own. I didn't even understand how and why. So yeah. That one I don't regret because they used it. It was affordable. I used it for work. I had a lot of days with it. And I feel like if you put a lot of usage under your belt for a watch, it's going to feel like it was a good buy. So another one that I'm going to 100% tell you that I regret buying is not a bad watch in terms of the way it feels. Is this Parnis? There are homage watches that a brand could do that look like something that you like, and but they don't lay it on too heavy. I had a Seiko like that was kind of a little bit like a Datejust, and it had that vibe, but it wasn't exactly, and it is tastefully done. This is around the time where the Pepsi, GMT Pepsi was so big. This is sometime, I want to say maybe 2017, 2018, maybe. I'm not sure exactly when. And it got really big and it became hard for people to buy. Not that I was in the market to buy it because I wasn't even interested in the watch, but just something about that drive of everyone trying to get it made me say, well, I want to get a Parnis just to see it and have it in my collection. It's a homage, but it's really kind of like a copy. And I wouldn't even say in a tasteful way. It's really just an exact clone. Is it worth the money in terms of the quality? Yes, because it's really like very cheap. You get it for like less than $100, and you're really getting a decent quality working watch. Once you become a watch person, this definitely leaves a bad taste in your mouth. And I already wouldn't have enjoyed something like this to wear, not, already kind of being a watch person by the time. But at the same time, I will say I had an itch. I just wanted to get it. I wasn't going to really wear it. I think I wore it like as a beat up watch a couple of times, like maybe like 3 or 4 times doing some activities. But after that, I really didn't watch it. I'll probably gift it away to somebody at some point in time. If it's just the itch sometime that you want to satisfy, just to kind of scratch the itch, we'll say that it's a cheaper option of scratching an itch than you spending a couple $100 on it. But really, to me, it's not very tasteful. It does have a lot of features though. So for example, you got hacking and hand winding. I haven't really used too many GMTs to know how they work in terms of the movement, how you move the other hand versus different, like the GMT hand versus the hourly hands and whatever cases the minute hands. I say that to say I don't like the way this one functions in that movement because it doesn't have a clicking feel. So it's like you turn this clockwise and you change the date. You turn it counterclockwise and it turns the GMT hand. But it's not like if I get it wrong, I can turn it backwards. No, now I'm turning the date. So now I just have to keep moving the GMT hand all the way around to get it back where I want it to go. And it doesn't land precisely where you want it to be because it doesn't have a clicking motion to it. So you have to now line it up correctly. Or otherwise, once you start moving the hour hands and the minute hands for the regular time track, it's not going to necessarily move correctly with the GMT hand and whatever. So that's why I'm not really even a fan, to be honest, of that, the way it moves and whatnot. The movement. You could get by on it though. It still gives you the function of GMT and hand hacking and hand winding. The clasp is a nice clasp, but it feels very unfinished, unrefined, but it's still like a fully milled out clasp and bracelet. You can lock it in. It just feels bad quality. You have this, which is almost like a button kind of action to it when you pull it up. You can see there how it has that kind of play. And then it also has, I don't even want to play with this right here because it feels very like choppy, but it has the, what do you call it? Micro adjust down there. It's just that once you're into watches, these things like really just put a bad taste in your mouth. That's all I can really say. Do I regret it? Yeah and no. I say no because if me not getting this would have caused me to try to buy something way more expensive, then I would have regretted that even more. So, but other than that, I will probably gift that one away. Now here is another watch, and here that's very special. I don't know if this was my watch or it used to be my dad's watch because I had a watch just like his. We both had Mickey Mouse watches. This is from way back in the days. I didn't realize until I found it one day amongst a lot of my stuff that it was a Seiko. I'm like, oh, wow, which is cool because like I said, Seiko's now my favorite brand. But it's great because back when they made these Mickey Mouse watches, they did it in a tasteful way that felt dressy. They were dressy and still like stylish. They didn't feel like a kid's watch. So I just thought it was really nice. You got the day and date. It is a quartz. Zooming in on it, you could see how it looks. I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. This watch right here is at least over 25 years old. So, I mean, it wasn't that long ago I put a battery in it. When I say not long ago, I mean a couple of years actually. I put a battery in it and it was working again. So then I knew at least that it works. But it is a old, there goes the reference number, I guess. Not that you can buy something like this again, but it has survived, and that's something that I'm glad about. I don't know if this is the original band that came on it. That I don't know, but it's nice having something like this. It wears small, but I mean, once you have it on for a little bit, you get used to it. And to me personally, like I like it, so I don't see myself necessarily wearing it. More of just like a keepsake at this point, but I really do think it's awesome. And it's funny because I try to look up Mickey Mouse watches after that fact, and I don't see Mickey Mouse watches that have that more grown effect to them. They're all like kiddie watches. So I think that's a shame that you don't really have them made like that anymore. I think some of them were not too bad, but now this watch, before I get to the rest of the watches in that other box, I'm going to get to this one here, and this is a Invicta, and I don't hate the brand Invicta. A lot of people do. They get a lot of hate for it because they have these really jumbo watches. My thoughts when it comes to Invicta is I knew a guy who used to wear all the big face Invictas, and I know a lot of people get into that phase of like, or that mindset of like, oh, that's tacky, that's lame, that's this and that. I don't feel that way. It's not my thing, those big face ones, but I could see where someone just likes the style, or maybe they got really big wrists and they just like it. There's nothing wrong with what people like. Sometimes in the watch world, people get very snobby about things and, oh, that's bad taste. There is no bad taste. It's whatever someone's taste is. And if it's not yours, that's just is what it is. But this particular Invicta, a lot of people, it had a big fan following. It's called the Pro Diver. And it had a big fan following because it's very affordable. It's roughly about like $80 to $90 on Amazon. And if you catch it on a sale, it goes down to like $55. This has the what is this movement called again? I want to say, I know I'm going to say it wrong. I want to say NH36. Let's see if it's on the back here. All right. I am not NH35A. Yes, NH35A. And I think the NH36 is another variant of the same kind of movement. But the NH35, this is like the upgraded or hand wind and hacking Seiko movement that I mentioned in my field watch. Has the unhacking version, which is the 7S movement. This is like the the hacking and hand winding version of that movement. So it's a slightly better version of that movement. But you're getting this in a watch that goes from $50 to $80, whereas watches that were $100 by Seiko didn't even have this movement in it at the time, which is crazy. Now their base movement is this one. They fit it into their watches now with their branding, but this is a unbranded Seiko movement, and they would source this movement out to a lot of companies because a lot of companies don't make their own movements. And this is probably one of the biggest movements that is sourced outwards. It really, the value of it, if you bought it on eBay, for example, it's like $30 for this movement. So the reason it not being put in all of the older Seikos back then made no sense, at least the cheaper Seikos. And now you'll find it in Seikos that are regularly like $100 and something dollars. But usually at that point, you're paying more for the watch because the watch aesthetics. Now this doesn't have solid end links, which is here, but it's fine. The class, I don't mind it. It looks very retro, like almost like that, you know, it's polished. So it reminds me of like retro Rolex back in the days, that stamped class. I don't knock anything about this watch because of its price, and all the positives of it also shine because of its price, in the sense that, you know, you got the nice movement, dive. It's an official dive watch. I don't know if it's certified, but it has a screw down crown. You can definitely jump in water with this in a pool and go into water and not worry about, you know, water getting into it for the price. This is probably the best bang for buck price watch I've ever seen. I don't get mad that it has Invicta on the side of it either. You don't even notice it. Like I said, I'm not someone who hates on Invicta anyway, so it doesn't matter to me. For a long time, I started using this as just a daily kind of beat 'em up watch if I had to wear it. But nonetheless, it still looked nice enough to be out there yet, even if, you know, it did get a little bit beat up. But if you were to buy this and this is your only watch and you want to baby it and keep it looking nice, this is a nice watch. It can be somebody's watch that they literally wear every day and pass it down to somebody because it's still a good watch. It doesn't matter about all that kind of brand recognition and all this other stuff. It really could be somebody's only watch. And it reminds me so much of a vintage Submariner. And the thing about it is, I'm not even a fan of Submariner. It's not my style of watch, but I really like this one because the price and what you're getting for it, that vintage feels like a vintage Submariner, but for the price, it's like you can't go wrong with it. So it doesn't, you're not spending an arm and a leg on something like this. I don't know, something about it altogether, the combination of the price and the features and this and that. I just really like this watch a lot. I really do. I don't wear it all the time or anything like that. And now I wear it less because I'm no longer working in the same environment that I was before, so I don't wear it as much, but I really, really do like this watch a lot. And I recommend it to anybody if it's their, like, especially as their first watch going down that journey. This right here, this ProTrek Casio, this is, I got into a space, sorry, I was trying to look at something on the back. I got into a space where I got curious about those survivalist watches, but then again, I also didn't have a digital watch, so I think it's always good to have a digital watch on hand. I use this all the time when I am home. Before I bought this, or even sometimes if I'm like getting ready to go outside and I throw on the watch I'm gonna wear, I'll put something else on. But if I'm in the house and I'm not yet ready to go out, or like say if before I started getting ready, I start making breakfast or whatever the case is, I'll throw this watch on in the house so I can look at the time. I'm not one of those people who believe in looking at your phone because that makes no sense. If I'm walking around the house and I'm using my hands, I'm getting ready, especially say if you have kids, you're getting ready, but you got to time everything too. Okay, the kids got to get up at 6 in the morning. You got to get them to school maybe at 8. So you got to constantly be using your hands. You're looking at you got to be checking the time, and you're using your hands, so you're not going to be carrying your phone everywhere, picking it up. And if it's in your pocket, the fact you got to take it out of your pocket every single second, that makes no sense. You can do obviously what I'm saying with any other watch, but just having this digital watch to quickly, easily read it while you're indoors is great. It's obviously great for outdoors too, and I think it looks nice. It's kind of big, but at the same time too, that big face makes it so easy to read. I'm just a fan of it. Now, this watch was a little bit pricey. It was like about $100 because of all these extra features that it has on it that you probably won't end up using. But it is a solar watch, so I never have to worry about it draining out a battery. It does have a light built into it, which is great. Now, the light isn't. If you use it in the dark, you could see with it, but I don't like the fact that it comes from one side rather than illuminating from the back. But nonetheless, you could see it. The only other thing I don't like about this watch is you can see at the top, it says Thursday and it says the 11th, but then you can move this and then it will say 9. Right now it's September 11. I wish that it displayed both at the same time, but it doesn't. I usually keep it on the day and not the date because, once you're in the month, you know what month you're in. So the day is what you're going to be more concerned with. But at the same time too, like I said, it's just one of those watches to have this reliable. I wouldn't recommend it over someone just getting like, say, a G-Shock that is a little bit cheaper. And you could go even as low as if you're gonna get a digital watch, something like this. I wasn't gonna originally put this on here. It's a little dusty. It's my son's watch, but I bought it for one of my sons who started getting into watches because he saw my watch collection. But at the time he was only maybe, I wanna say like 2.5 years old. So he wouldn't be able to read the time, but I just bought him this watch anyway, because it's like really cheap digital watch. And it's a classic watch. It's like, I think the cheapest Casio, but also like the most like known from back in the days. And it's kind of the architect that all the other digital watches were built up on, especially the G-Shocks. But you can get something like this for like $16. You can get other like even G-Shocks that are a little bit cheaper. So if you wanted a digital watch, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this because you're paying for its features. But in some of the features on it, I did enjoy the idea of. But like, for example, the compass seemed kind of cool to me. But I think like the way it works, you got to take it off your wrist and then you got to place it down. I don't know if it's always working great otherwise. And then the barometer is supposed to tell you, I think if I forget what that one does. If it's why in my mind I'm thinking if it detects the weather. I forget because I didn't even use this thing like that. All right, so I just asked my smart speaker to confirm, and it says air pressure. For some reason, I started thinking it was if it's gonna rain. And I guess you could kind of say they link a little bit the same, but I've never obviously used this because once again, it's more of like an outdoors type of watch. And that's what I want to use it for in case I was to do something like go camping or something like that. But a lot of these features, sometimes they don't work unless you take the watch off and then there's things you have to do to make it work correctly. Whether it's, I don't know, holding it in a certain position or whatever. And then you have the altimeter. I know I'm saying it wrong, so I'm sorry, I'm butchering it. But that's supposed to measure your height how high you are from sea level. I don't know if this is true or not. It's telling me I'm 225 feet above sea level. That might be true, but at the same time, like I said, once again, I think it's one of those things where I don't know if it works great unless it's away from your wrist, and whatever the case is, you have to have it sit there for a while. So I'm not too sure. I can't remember. But so yeah, I definitely would say that it's one of those watches that I don't think anyone needs this specific type. I think the aspects of solar and having a light on it is very much a great feature for anyone to have, but you can get that in a watch that's like about, I want to say the solar tough watches start about $40, I think, dollars. In that range, $40 or $50. So at that point, you can spend half this price and get something that's gonna do what you need to do. You don't need those extra features unless you are the type who wants to go camping. In that case, this is pretty good in that regard. So you know, if you like being outside, you like doing all that stuff. So here you can kind of see the brand. I mean, not the brand, I'm sorry, the reference number, PRG270, and see, like I said, if that's something that you would want to look into. Now, also too, I had these on the side here. I'll probably do a separate video showing about, you know, straps and removing them and whatnot. But I use this sometimes to dress up certain watches. So the next watch I'm going to bring into play is actually my Tag Heuer Carrera Day-Date. And I like the idea of this because of the blue dial, but the date only, this is 41 millimeters. The date only was 39 millimeters. And I prefer that size and that thickness because it was thinner, but they didn't have it in the blue dial at the time. And I really wanted a blue dial watch at the time. Now, after I returned the Movado, I had actually got an Aqua Racer that was in black. The problem is I bought it on Amazon actually, and it wasn't bad, but the problem was that, after I had got it, the movement started acting a little funny. It was like a little scratchy. So I sent it into their third-party warranty group or whatever that they have on the side, the third party warranty. And my mistake, not being too familiar with, you know, handling watches, I should have took the bracelet off. I didn't, and that watch was very shiny and prone to scratches. Even the dial, it was very shiny. The reference, I want to say, was 2110 dot, hold on, no, it was WAY 2110 dot BA 9. Now I want to say 938. I'm not sure now. I used to have it memorized in my head because it was my first really luxury watch because I returned the Bulova and I loved that watch. It was so beautiful. It was amazing. Really nice, really nice. I loved it more than watches that were way more expensive than it. Not that I had more expensive watches at the time, but I know my taste. And if I like something, I really like it. I love that watch. But the problem was that once I returned it in to get that done and they brought it back, it had scratches on the bracelet. It had scratches on the back of the case. It had scratches on it was a diver style watch. I'm not a fan of diver style watches, but that one was very dressy. And it had scratches on like the bezel. It was all metal and had scratches on the metal. And so I returned it. And I really loved the watch, but I returned it. And so after I returned it, I sat on the money for a while. And luckily, Amazon had a great return policy. They took it. I sat on the money for a while. Later on, I was like, I wanted a blue dial watch. I was looking at this watch. I liked it, but I was like, I can't get both. So I was like, let me get this one now because I had the other one. And I liked this watch. It satisfied a certain itch that I had for a luxury brand or in a luxury watch that had a blue dial and a see-through case back and whatnot. But it's great, it's cool, and I love this bracelet because it's the same type of bracelet that was on the other watch, which was an Aqua Racer, a Tag Aqua Racer that I had before. But I feel like in this watch, I like to use these straps on. I bought them to dress it up, and I've got a blue one like this too that matches really well with this. The only thing about it I would say is because I like dressier style watches, even though most people will consider these type of watches like a sporty watch because they consider something dressy to be more like this maybe. But just using the term loosely, I like dressier style watches, and I think I may have saturated my collection with it. So then this one doesn't, I love wearing it at time to time, but then I'll fall kind of out of it a little bit and then I'll come back to it. So today I was wearing this, which is why I had it on earlier when I started the video. And I was gonna end up switching the straps on it to the blue one. And I actually thought about just earlier maybe buying a nice rubber strap for it, a blue one. So that way it could be a little more sporty, because that seems to be the really trendy thing now, is wearing dressier or sporty type of watches. When I say sporty, I don't mean dive ones, but ones that are kind of a little more universal, semi-dressy, semi-casual. Things like, say, the Aquaterra from Omega, whatever the case is, and dressing it up with like a nice rubber strap makes it like a little kind of, now you can kind of do a little bit anything with it. The rubber strap, especially for the summer, it won't get, you know, you can rinse it off if it gets all mushy from sweat, but then also too, like, it can be, unlike a leather strap, it looks as good as as some leather straps or whatever the case is, but you know, you could, like I said, really kind of beat it up. So that's become like the new trend now. So I kind of thought about getting an aftermarket one like that. I looked at Amazon, but anyway, I do like this watch. The movement on it is the caliber 5, but that's essentially a Sellita movement. I forget the actual number. I think it's Sellita SW300, but I could be wrong. It's a day and date function. The date changes like almost immediately at the 12 o'clock position. It's really nice. I like the indices. I don't like that it wears so big, and I'm going to get into that in a minute of how one of my other Seiko watches over here, it's a dive watch that I got a little bit actually around the same time as this one, wears large. So it's a larger watch. This is a 41 millimeter. That other watch, excuse me, is a 44. And what's funny is I feel that that one wears better than this one. And that's just a positive. Seiko, they know how to make their watches, even if they're bigger, wear a lot smaller. But I really do like this watch, and I really do think that TAG is actually a brand that I like a lot. It gets a lot of hate because some people say like that, oh, it's overpriced for what it is. I think all luxury watches are overpriced for what they are. And some other watch brands that I also think are very nice, but are probably less known by the regular generic public. In the watch community, people will go, oh, those watches are better value. But you also have to understand too, is that a regular person's probably not going to buy those because no one's going to know that their watch is even valuable. And there is always going to be, I don't care what the argument people say in the watch world, they'll say opposite. Buy whatever you want. Yes, you should buy whatever you want. But there's always going to be that aspect of that you want to know that what you bought has some kind of value to public perception, because otherwise it feels like you just spent a lot of money on something that you're treating yourself. You want to feel like it's flashy if you're going to buy something like that. And in that regard, if you're buying a luxury watch, you do want to know that it has some kind of cachet to it. I feel that's generally the case. Now, like I said, in the watch community, you'll have a lot of people who will tell you otherwise. Oh no, that stuff doesn't matter to me. Those same people who will say that doesn't matter to them, either they don't have a really expensive watch, or they probably do have a really expensive watch and they're saying to you it doesn't matter, but meanwhile they got a really expensive watch. Or they don't have an expensive watch and they're saying it doesn't matter, that brand cachet, because they don't have it. Whatever the side reasons, or half of them too will say that brand doesn't matter. Meanwhile, in a different category, not watches, but maybe cars, they got a fancy car. Instead of driving a Toyota, they're driving a BMW, and they're saying like brand doesn't matter. And they're like, oh, well, they'll probably end up telling you, well, because this is reliable. Yeah, Toyota's reliable. Toyota's probably more reliable. So regardless of what certain people are going to say, at the end of the day, you buy a luxury watch, you know, there is that's an aspect of it. I'm not saying it's the only aspect. I'm not saying it's the thing that should rule your decision, but it is a aspect of it. So jumping into the next watch, and this actually watch is very important in my collection, and this is the Seiko Sarb the Seiko Sarb 035. I forget between the 35 and the 33 because the other one is the black dial, and I forget which one's considered the black dial, the cream dial. Let me see if I see it on the back here. Does it say it on the back? It does not, but so first I just want to get into the movement on this one and go a little backstory into the movement of it. So this one uses the 6R15 movement, 6R15C, but you know, the C is just iterations. There was a B, then there's a C, just iterations of the same movement. But the 6R15 movement, now back at this time, I bought this in 2015. I bought this just before I bought the Tag Heuer Aqua Racer, because I just learned about automatics. And then so when I started learning about them, doing research, I came across this and I was like, this one looks really nice. and it was only $293 I paid for this. This one in the black variant was pretty much 300 or less. And a lot of people was like talking about it, but it wasn't very popular at the time. There was some people talking about it, but not like a whole lot. Some people in the watch community, but not a whole lot. And then what happened down the line, like maybe 2 years later, it got really popular. Then after that, almost like 3 or 4 years later, it became, or almost even 5 years later, you couldn't even get the watch really anymore unless you went on eBay, and you're paying now like twice as much. And from a $300 watch to a $600 watch, it gained a cult following, and it was so interesting because, and I'll dive into another aspect of something as well regarding this, but because I went on a journey before, just wanted to get like automatic Seikos a little bit later on, and old vintage ones. I'll just get into it now. And one day I said to myself, I was trying to find some. I found one. It was like an old vintage King Seiko. Then I returned it because like there was some stuff wrong with it. And then I said to myself, why am I trying to go down this pipeline of vintage Seiko when I was like, this cult classic right here will become a vintage Seiko and will be super popular, and I'll have my own vintage that I put the wear and tear on it. And sure enough, 10 years later, this is like my vintage Seiko. It's not old, but it's a cult classic and it's great. So, but this watch right here really kind of set a bar, and it was part of the era in which Seiko watches were just, the value for what you got was amazing, and not everything was perfect, but you could never argue with the value, to the point where it was like any issue you found with it was just like, not even a big deal. So you've got solid end links, a milled clasp. This watch set a higher bar than even any other Seiko watch. The milled clasp, obviously solid links. Some people complain about that little gap. It didn't bother me because, like I said, at $300 for what you're getting, sapphire glass, see-through case back, and this movement here at the time, this did a 50. This had 3 hertz, which is 3. How do the beats go again? 6 beats per second, which is a little slower than the normal 8 beats per second, but it had a 50-hour power reserve, where most movements at this time had a 38-hour power reserve. So you had a better power reserve, which is fine. But in addition to that, the dial on it looks really nice. I love that kind of needle thread seconds hand. I'll wind it up a little bit. Cream dial. Now, obviously, I went with the cream dial because a lot of people's going with the black dial. This is actually cream. You may not be able to see that it's cream here. It may just look white. But I went with that because with my skin tone, it just worked better for me to have lighter dials often. I can do darker dials, but I prefer, if they're going to be darker, that they're blue. Even though my Aqua Racer was black and I loved it. But anyway, polished bezel on the top. It really gives you that just simplistic everyday watch vibe to it. I don't want to compare it to another watch just for the sake of like, not putting it into a box that's like saying it's not its own thing, because it's its own thing. But so for lack of saying it, it just gives you that everyday simple date design watch that just feels very fulfilling. It's a 38 millimeter, but I feel like it just wears perfect. It doesn't feel like it's oversized, because Seiko always undersizes a lot of their dials. So it feels closer to like a nice hefty 36 millimeter rather than a 38. Obviously hacking hand winding. At the time, this was Seiko's 3rd tier movement. So you had the 7S movement on the bottom, the 4R movement above it, which was the equivalent of that NH36 I mentioned to you. It was like a 4R36 when it was branded as Seiko, NH36 when it was branded outside of Seiko. That was their 2nd tier movement, and their 3rd tier was the 6R15 movement. And it's now been discontinued, this movement, and now they use a different 6R movement. I think it's like a 6R28 or something like that, which now has a higher beat rate and all this other good stuff with it. But nonetheless, at the time, this was considered their upper line movement, almost equivalent to ETA 20. I forget the ETA movements now off the top of my head. ETA 2624 was it? Their kind of baseline movement. But nonetheless, that was still pretty good to compare to that, because ETA's movement was kind of the base standard. And so and equivalent to the Sellita, when Sellita took over as far as the ETA kind of clones, they were when the patents ended for ETA, it was SW200. This is like the equivalent of that. So definitely, this was a big watch in my watch journey. It came before I settled on a luxury watch, but it was my first really automatic watch. It was a Seiko 5 I bought that I don't have on me right now, somewhere put away. That was like $100. That was actually my first automatic, but this is my first good automatic. I bought both of those two watches at the same time, so you could say this was my first whatever. And still to this day, it's just a great watch. I still wear it. It's nice. If I want a nice looking watch, but I don't want to go over the top, or I'm just more comfortable wearing something that's a little more like reserved, I can put this one on, and I feel like it punches with any heavy watch. Like this literally could be someone's only watch in their watch collection. I just think it's a beautiful watch. I think it holds its own. You literally could put this thing next to any higher end watch, like a Datejust, I feel, and it holds its own, especially like a vintage Datejust. It holds its own. I just think it's amazing. Sorry for rambling so much on this watch. I just think it was a big point, jumping point for me to enter that world, along with the fact that it's just a really nice watch. I'll never get tired of it. There's some days, it's funny, where I do have days where I'm like, I don't know how much I like it. And then days where like I won't wear it for a while, and all of a sudden I'll be like, I love this watch. And it kind of goes back and forth, but I think that happens with many watches. So not too long after that, I ended up getting, maybe it was 2000. I bought that one in 2015. Maybe I got this one in late 2016 or 2017. And this was known as the Sumo. Another Seiko watch, obviously, and it's one of their dive watches. But their dive watches at the time, I jumped into this because at that time you had the Seiko SKX, which was like their more lower level dive watch, which had the 7S movement in it, 7S26 movement in it, or 7S. Was it 26 or 36? I thought it was 26. But anyway, you had the Turtle, you had the Samurai, you had obviously the Sumo, you had all these, you had the Monster, you had all these different dive watches. And the thing that's so great about Seiko, why I love Seiko so much, is all their watches had such a strong, it blew my mind how a company could do this. You had such a strong, definitive design, but none of your watches look the same. And how it was almost like, how do you make a case that looks so unique, so much intricacies, that, and this was across the board, even with, like I said, the SARP that I just showed you, has a lot of work in its details as well. I'm sorry, like certain things I may have breezed over on here, like how you got the brushing on top, then you've got that kind of lower stoop level there of polished, and how it's got those angles. And the whole lugs curve downwards like that, which is really nice. So just kind of adding to my point, I'm trying to say is you have all these different types of case designs and different wild shapes and everything like that. Meanwhile, they're all different and they're all affordable, but they look like they're 5 times the price. I've had people look at this watch when I have it on and go, is that a Rolex? And I'm not saying that to say like everything's got to be compared to Rolex. And I wasn't taking it that way. What I did take it as is that a somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 watch you have on your wrist? And this watch at the time cost me $475. Bought it on Amazon. It's amazing. It also has a 6R15 movement. Dive watch, 200 meters. I love it. I love the whole in your face look. I love the whole semi-curved lugs look. You got the brush and then you got the polish. I have beat this watch up a little bit, but it held its own. It has dropped hard on a ceramic floor where it's got like that little dent right there, but it still looks good, and it's beat up and looks good at the same time. It has solid end legs now, and it has that classic back then for the and I think all the divers still have it now, that little tsunami wave that Seiko is known for. And the class, even though it's stamped, it's great, it's still fine, and it's like, for the price, it's just amazing watch. And like I said, I'm not a huge fan of divers, but this is one of those divers that I really enjoy and I really love. And my wrist is 6 inches and a quarter, not very big, but this one, I love the way it feels on me, even though it's 45 millimeters. as far as the width, but the lug to lug on these watches, I don't know what it is, but I could tell it's a lot shorter than some, because to me it feels like it wears better on my wrist than the Carrera, because this is a lot more wider. Not wider, I'm sorry, but longer, lug to lug, I believe. And so I just love the way it feels. This thing could stand right next to a Submariner, Omega Seamaster. You could be in a room next to people with those, and this is gonna hold its own. That's what I love about this watch. They've since made, this was a second generation, they since made like a third generation, and I think a fourth generation, I'm not sure, and the price started going up, and that's when it was kind of like, became the problem with Seiko, is once their price started going up, it took away the thing that a lot of watch collectors loved about them and what made them my favorite brand. Even though it's still kind of my favorite brand, it's a little less so because of the fact that that affordability is leaving, where before, like, you couldn't touch it. Like I said, I love some simple watches, and the Sarb, for example, just like $300, more than I could ever ask for. Automatic movement, sapphire, like everything perfect. It could be my one and only watch. And this with that was like a 1-2 combo. Even though by this point I already had a lot of watches, I always say to myself, if those two watches were the only ones I had, it'd be a perfect 1-2 combo, and I would love it. I hate that Seiko value is starting to be lost now. That part really does suck. They're still, I think, a good brand, but yeah, and they had a lot of other hidden gems too that I've actually purchased for family members as gifts that were automatic, that were never advertised, and they would cost like maybe $100 to $125. The 4R movement on them, hacking, hand winding, dressy, and yeah. So, and then last is my Rolex Datejust. This is my favorite watch, but it's my favorite watch because of a couple reasons. Because Rolex is not my favorite brand at all. I'm actually not a fan of the majority of their watches. And I'm not saying that to hate on them in any way. I like their Oyster Perpetual. Obviously, I love the Datejust, and the Day Date is cool too, because they all have a similar style to them. They're all pretty much the same type of case design. So that's cool. I've always been more of a fan of the Datejust more than anything else because I love the Jubilee bracelet. For me, my dad had a older one, and I have it somewhere in storage. I'm not sure where right now, but it's somewhere put away. And if I had it, I would have brought it into the video. That's kind of what made me love this watch so much, is seeing him have it, but then also too, the fact that that was the starter reason why I love this watch. But then after the fact, it just became also, you saw it in a lot of pop culture back in the days, from like in the 80s and the 90s. And it just became a symbol. And it's like, I know it was like cliche, but it also was like this watch that to me just had so much to it, that like, as far as just recognition, I just loved it. Now, what's funny is the Submariner apparently is almost as equally known as a watch. I think back then it wasn't, but now it probably may have surpassed the Datejust. I don't know, but I never was a fan of the Submariner. It's not because I dislike it. I'm not a dive watch type of person. But if I am gonna like a dive watch, that dive watch has to be different. I'm more of a dressy style type of watch kind of person. But with that being said, and I got this in 2016. It was inspired for me, like I said, because of my dad's watch. So it's my favorite watch. Like I said, Rolex is not my favorite brand. Do I think that they're overpriced? Like I said before, I think all luxury brands are overpriced now. They have gone up roughly about $1,000 since that time frame, which is crazy. That these watches have increased $1,000 in a little less than 10 years in price. So luxury goods are definitely going up. When I did get this, because this is my Grail watch, it satisfied my need to want to get more watches, which was great. And I do wear this one a good amount. And now that I'm no longer doing the type of work that I was doing before, I wear this one more often. But I will switch it up with my Seiko that I wear a lot, the Sumo, because I love the way that looks, and I don't mind like wearing that in any kind of environment. Though I wear this one in most environments too. Like I'll take my kids to the playground, I'll be wearing this. But this to me is just one of those watches where I love it. It's my favorite watch ever. It's my Grail. And a lot of people throw around the word Grail because For them, it's just a watch that they can't attain, and that's what makes it a grail. That to me was not my definition of this grail. I'm not knocking anyone else's definition of a grail, but I'll tell you this: if your definition of a grail watch is just an expensive watch, getting that is not going to satisfy your need from always wanting more watches. For me, this satisfied the need because as a true grail to me, it was never about necessarily the money. It was an expensive watch, but it wasn't about the money because there are other watches that could be more expensive. It's about the fact that, like I said, my dad had the same kind of watch. Seeing it growing up in pop culture as well, it became a special thing in time where even now you don't see it as much in movies and this and that. It doesn't have the same pop culture reference as it did then. But like I said, my key reason, my 80% of the reason why I love this watch was because it was my dad's watch. The other 20% was that, okay, it became a thing where you saw people who back in those days when they made it or they became like whatever in the movies, and they became like, they were either the successful businessman, they were the successful crime mob guy, gangster, or whatever. Like everything referenced having a Datejust back then in the movies, no matter what it was. You know, that those kind of scenes where people talk about in the movies, you would see someone who's like has no money on them and be like, here, take my watch. And it's like they give the watch to bargain doing something. This was often like that watch. So I just loved it, like just in its totality. So as a grail watch for me, it satisfied that itch of where I didn't now crave watches anymore the way I would just randomly buy random watches regardless of the price. It'd be like if it was a cheap watch, I'd just go buy it. That stopped when I got this. But the reason why I like it so much is because, like I said, I love dressy watches. I love this size. Now, what's interesting, like I mentioned before with the Sarb, it's a 38 millimeter and they really have like the same size. So it's weird how Seiko either is good at making their larger watches look small, which I do think is the case, but I know that Rolex is good at making their watches look larger because this 36 definitely looks a little more hefty. But I love the fluted bezel on this. I love the Jubilee bracelet. I love, and they stopped this on the other versions, I love the railroad track on it that goes around. I love that with the Roman numerals. Once I got into clear case backs, I wish this came with a clear case back, but unfortunately it doesn't. I like the fact that this is, I feel like probably the dressiest, obviously within realm with some of the other Rolexes too. I guess you could throw the President, the Day in the same category, but I feel like it's the dressiest, like bracelet watch, all like metal watch that you could have, meaning like most of the time some people think of dressy as having to have a leather, being more subdued, having a leather band on it. I feel that this can also pull off dressy because it's like a dressy all metal watch. Down to the bracelet, to me, is a dressy bracelet, even though most people don't consider bracelets to be super dressy. I consider it to be that, and it's one of the only watches that do that. I feel like other watches don't do that. And not to say that you couldn't wear something like this and wear something like the Sarb I just showed you to the same event. I do think that both of them, I'm just using that as an example because I'm not knocking the Sarb. I love the Sarb, so there's not a knock on it. But in the sense that with that type of bracelet, which is more similar to an oyster style bracelet, if a person was to get dressed up and go to a very dressy event where you're in a suit and stuff like that, you could wear that watch and I think it's fine and it's gonna still work. I think almost any watch could really work. But there's a difference, even though these watches look the same, there's a difference between this type of bracelet and the fluted bezel, giving that shine, which makes it feel like jewelry, which makes it feel to me more dressy. Yet you could wear it with a pair of jeans or even like a t-shirt and it still works. I just love this watch so much. So it's my favorite watch. Yeah, so that's my collection. This was just kind of like a point. I wanted to guys show you like where my thought patterns were with my collection and how I went with buying what I bought. It is just kind of like a quick, not a quick, but just a little dive before I go into I'm going to make a video just in regards to if you're shopping for a watch specifically in that maybe $2,000, maybe inching to that $3,000 range. some options that are out there, because like I said, I have a friend who was looking to purchase a watch, and I just wanted to help him with that. And some of the things that he had mentioned to me along the way before I even had a chance to ask him a question. And I started doing some research about, I was going to ask him if he was familiar with how familiar was he with brands that are less popular. And one of the first things he ends up saying to me before I even had a chance to ask him that was he was looking at a brand that, and I'll get to it when I start that video, I won't mention it here, but he was looking at a brand that most non-watch people wouldn't know about. And then I was like, okay, well, that answered the question that, you know, he wouldn't mind shopping for one of those kind of brands, which makes it very interesting because it opens up the doors a lot when you're not needing the brand to be known. Once again, I think that for some people that's a thing, but if you genuinely don't feel that way, well, then you don't feel that way. And it definitely makes it easier to shop in that regard. It's a brand that if you are from the old school, or if you're a watch person, you would know about him. It's an old school brand, but it just opened up the doors for it to be known like, okay, well, he knows about other brands like this, so that's cool. And he's not too much in the realm of being like, I need something that's super known. So that works. That's cool. So I will, like I said, stay tuned for that video. We're going to just do a deep dive into different watches. I'm going to have my tablet out. We're just going to look at a couple of other brands and just kind of see and rate them on, like, you know, different watches from different brands of what my, at least my thoughts are in terms of what makes a good watch, depending on the type of person that is looking to purchase it, and specifically my friend. And I don't really know his flavor completely, but I also know, I mean, a little bit. He did say a little bit that he likes the idea of like something dressy with a leather band. I did tell him that you might want to get that aftermarket because getting the bracelet, you want to always have on hand. But nonetheless, as far as the style of the watch goes, something that we'll just kind of dive into and take a look at and just kind of go through it based on my perspective of where my thoughts are and how also to relate it to you guys as the audience if you're looking for something similar. So I'll go off just some general concepts of, hey, if this is what you're looking for, check out this kind of watch. If you're not and this is your style, check out this one. And we're going to kind of break it down like that. So as always, you guys be safe out there. And I always think it's important to accessorize. Obviously, you can see when it comes to watch world, you have all types of prices. Nothing has to be super expensive. You can buy a watch for like $100 and it be your everyday, all the time watch. You could even buy a watch that is like this Invicta, like I said before, $50 when it's on sale, and that could be your only watch. But I do think it's nice to accessorize and have a watch always on hand, because it's a level of, at this point now, what used to be a norm is now a level of class. And even if, you know, you're the type who has like a Apple Watch, and that's cool, they work, they do bridge the gap between luxury and non-luxury in terms of someone like wearing it, because you'll have like the richest people wearing a Apple Watch. But nonetheless, I still think it's good for you to have a regular watch in your arsenal, even if you do have that, because I think there's going to be days where maybe you want to get dressed up or whatever the case is, and this just looks more traditional than an Apple Watch. You don't have to wear it all the time, but just have those occasions where you can. And with that being said, you guys, as always, like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.